There's an expression in Spanish that says, los placeres hay que dárselos en vida, which means the pleasures in life, you need to enjoy them when you are still alive. Makes sense, no? Yeah, after that, it's a little bit more complicated. At least we don't know. So I will come back to that phrase later. You know, Parsha of the week is known as Parshat Kiteitzeh, when you go out. Go out where? La milchama. To the war. You know why the word milchama, war, it's called milchama? Every Hebrew word, most of the Hebrew words, have a 3 letters root. Milchama, lechem, bread. People usually go to war to take away the lechem from you, the oil, the weapons, the land. Harari, who spoke about him a couple of weeks ago, says that that's gone. Now people fight for ideas that they have in their brain. That holy, that city is holy. But it's holy for me too. I fight for the city. That prophet was holy and he lived there. So that tombstone is mine. And they will fight not for land, just for ideas. I don't know, too many wars. So the Torah, when the Torah uses the word enemies, it uses the word in plural, oivecha. One of the rabbis will say one of the oivim, one of the enemies, obviously, is the other country, the other land, you know, and you enter in a war, and you need, even in a war, there can be menschlichkeit. No? You don't rape in a war, says the Torah. If you want a woman, you bring her home, you wait 30 days, you convert her into your wife. You don't rape her. 3,000 years ago. But the rabbi explains the following, Oivecha, who is the other enemy? The other enemy is you. You have a permanent fight with yourself. Sometimes you are aware of it, and sometimes you are not aware of it. So when I say that los gustos hay que dárselos en vida, that the pleasures, you need to enjoy them when we are alive, I have a dream. And I had a dream, I wanted to bring an expert to my synagogue to explain to me what's the enemy within. I have one. I don't always understand my enemy, but I know I have one. I try to conquer it, but I don't always prevail. So I find the expert. Happens to be an Argentinian expert in everything. In everything. He's a very learned Argentinian. He's a doctor from the UBA, Universidad de Buenos Aires, in law. He's a social worker in America. He has a PhD from the Jewish Theological Seminary. He was the head of Hartman and head of different institutions, but among rabbis, we know that he is the learned rabbi. He's graduated my seminary in Buenos Aires, and he will tell you about his life and how we can deal with our internal enemy. Because we can conquer it. What a better place, what a better parsha, what a better rabbi to teach us and make us feel the text. Rabbi Borodowski, welcome to Beth Torah Bnei Rock Campus.
Shabbat Shalom. I love and respect your rabbi so much. I have so much respect that I practice and practice and practice his accent for hours and hours and hours for you to understand me. Somebody asked me, do you know Rabbi Roxman? I said, well, 40 years. Is that enough? You know, some people know about when their life becomes something else. A moment when your life, the life you knew, ends, and your new life begins, and nothing you knew about your life before makes sense anymore. And that happened to me. On a specific moment, one morning, the rabbi, the Alfredo I knew, vanished, ceased to exist. And I remember that moment was on June 19th of 2013. I was 43 years old, and I had 3 police cars behind me. They stopped me, they handcuffed me, One of the policemen, threw me literally on the back on his patrol, and 5 minutes later, I was handcuffed in the precinct. I was formally arrested, and 4 hours later, I was standing before a judge. 4 months earlier, on Shabbat morning, one of my congregants, a retired detective, called me to the side. I remember exactly what during Kiddush. I was trying to eat my bagel, and he pulled me literally and said, "Rabbi, follow me." I went to a corner of the Kiddush room. He opened his hand and he said, "Look, Rabbi." He was holding a shiny metallic object. It was a small police shield. "Rabbi, this is very special. Police only give one of these to close friends and family. It is a copy of my shield. Use it if you have any problem. It is like the real thing." The tragedy began exactly a week later, actually a day before, on a Friday morning. I was driving to my work on the 79th, on the Hudson Highway, if you know Manhattan, next to the River Hudson, and I exit on the 79th exit, and I didn't stop at the stop sign. I looked to the left, and there he was, hiding a patrol. Immediately they pursued me, they stopped me. I rolled down my window, and the policeman came and said, "Well, you know, driver license and registration." I was gone. I showed him my badge. He looked at me, smiled, and without any explanation said, "Please be more careful the next time. You can go." At that moment, a voice inside of me whispered, "Alfredo, you are special." In no time, I began patrolling the highways of New York. My favorite target were those driving very slowly. I would drive, place my car in front of them, and drive slower than them. I will pay you with your medicine. Then I will go to the side of the car, roll down my window, show my badge, and said, "Move to the other lane." I also didn't like people who were texting while driving, and I also would place my car parallel to the car, roll my window, show my badge, stop texting. On the morning of my arrest, I was driving in the town of Mamaroneck, Westchester, and a small white car was driving ahead of me and was very slow. And my blood began to boil. I had to do something. A young lady was driving the car. I drove next to her, showed my badge, and asked her to move to the slow lane, and she didn't comply. Not only that she didn't comply, she made a phone call. I said, "Well, she's not obeying, I need to go," and I drove away. And 1 minute later, I had the 3 patrols behind me. They stopped, I stopped, and an officer came out of his car. I was looking through the rear view mirror, and I tell you what I saw. He was not walking to my car. He was running towards my car. With the bulletproof vest, he looked like a rhinoceros going to collide with my vehicle. He approached the window of my car, and I tell you, that was an angry face. He was red like a tomato, ready to explode. In fact, I felt that he wanted to punch me, and he was using all the restraint he had not to punch me straight on my face. And I wonder what was happening. I had no idea internally of what I had done and why he was so upset with me. When I stood in front of the judge, he issued a restraining order against me. And 2 months later, I was curious, who was that lady who made the phone call? I read her name and I Googled her. And I saw that she was getting married. And I looked at the picture of her and her fiancé, and I literally fell to the floor. The fiancé was the policeman that arrested me. Of all the cars in New York, I had to show my badge to the girlfriend of the policeman in town, where I was pretending to be a policeman in town. But you know something? That was a blessing. I learned that was a blessing a few years later. Because at that moment, God stopped me. Because I do not know how the story could have ended without me being arrested. And with all the pain I went through, and all the regrets and the suffering, it took me some time to understand what happened to me. I was given a chance to stop. The night of the arrest, I could not sleep. I watched the main New York evening news, and I saw something that changed my life forever. Maurice Dubois, the most famous new anchor of night news, began talking about a dangerous menace on the highways of New York. And I saw there my picture. And Maurice Dubois baptized this rabbi. He baptized me as the road rage rabbi. I know you're doing like this. Imagine what I did. The road rage rabbi. I knew at that moment my life was over. The road rage rabbi went viral. I even appeared on front pages of newspapers in Japan and Ireland. I had never touched anybody. I never stopped anybody, but I was a famous rabbi in Westchester. Imagine what the press can do with a famous rabbi in Westchester. Perfect candidate for press circus. Once I appeared on TV, what happened to me? People began coming out of the woods. Hey, I know this guy. I know the road rage rabbi. He tried to stop me. 3 more cases against me. 3 times arrested. Full arrested. Handcuff, fingerprint, picture. I have a gallery of my pictures. 3 times in every different precinct. I went through the same, and the Caps had a festival, the road rage rabbi, imagine. Suddenly, I began getting emails with cancellations of all my teaching and all my lectures. No rabbi, nobody, no friend would take my emails or phone calls. I was put on some black book of the Jewish community, and I collapsed. and I was hospitalized in a psychiatric ward. And there happened to me the most amazing thing. 3 doctors saw me, and after talking with me for no more than 10 minutes, they diagnosed me as bipolar. That moment was the happiest moment in my life. Because now I understood myself. I understood the fight, the internal fight that the rabbi was talking about. I had been manic all my life, and I didn't know it. Because I was an overachiever. As a manic, I was a lawyer, a PhD, a social worker, a writer, and if you are manic and smart, you can get away with almost with everything. But once I learned that I was manic, I read my life backwards, and I understood all the suffering and pain I had. And what happened to me is that my wife, a holy person, I tell you, gave me an ultimatum. You must go to a psychiatrist. I went to the psychiatrist, I was manic. And what did I do being manic? What manics do? I lied. I told to my psychiatrist, I am depressed. Because a manic doesn't want to give up the mania. And my doctor gave me an antidepressant. Then I was manic, antidepressant, and a police shield. The perfect storm. I returned from the hospital. I tell you how bad things were. I had to go into my home, returning from the hospital, to the neighbor backyards because of all the press waiting by the doors of my home for the road-rage rabbi. I finally was able to rest, and somebody knocked my door. I opened the door, and was a man I never met. He gave me an envelope in total silence, turned around, and left. I opened the envelope, was only 1 page. I read it, and almost collapsed. Temple Emmanuel, the big one in Manhattan, where I was the executive director of the Shabbat Center, very prestigious, fired me. I went suicidal. And I was back to the psychiatric ward. And the journalists would not stop. They even made jokes. The non-kosher police rabbi, the non-kosher arrest. And my lawyer finally decided to make public my bipolar condition. I was at the end. But I was saved. I was saved by my family, and I was saved by my congregation. I had a small congregation, and my congregation knew who I was. And they stood by my side. And they said, we know who Alfredo is. And they kept me as the rabbi. They uplifted me. I tell you, I do know the power and love of sacred community. I had given my life to them, and at the moment I need my life back, they gave it back to me. I went into the deepest depression. My lawyer forbade me from driving. He said the road rage rabbi should not drive until all the cases are sealed, finished. I tell you, driving a bicycle in Westchester is a death sentence. I spent 8 months on a fetal position on a couch. I was immersed in darkness, with no sense of future, with no sense of self, with no hope. Until one day, I felt a force moving me. I stood up from the sofa and I walked upstairs to my office. I don't know how. And on top of my desk was a yellow folder. And if you ask me who put this folder there, I can't tell you. Sometimes I think it was an angel, or I didn't unconsciously, but it was there. And I grabbed the folder, I opened it, and I saw the results of a positive psychology test I had taken 2 years ago. And I read the results. Creativity, love of learning, curiosity, bravery, and perseverance. Those were my results. And something happened to me. I made a 180 degrees turn. And from the deepest depression, a week later, I enrolled myself in social work school. I looked at the results and I said, Alfredo, you have forgotten who you were. You have creativity, courage, and love of learning. And in the midst of the depression, with all the cases going on, I went back to school. And not only I finished social work school, I was given the highest award of Adelphi University, the Inspire Award, in recognition of extraordinary achievement, determination, and leadership. I excel, all because I rediscovered the strengths I had within me and became the best of I could be. All my cases were closed. I only had to pay fines. My files were sealed. That was the greatest possibility, the greatest outcome. Every time I went to the court, I apologized to the people I had injured. And I tell you, it was the healthiest thing that happened in my life to apologize in public for what I had done, because although I was manic, I was responsible. And that was tshuva, repentance like I never had felt in Yom Kippur. And I was embarrassed in front of everybody. There were cameras all around me. But I was liberated. I felt clean. And this is why I traveled the world teaching the power of positive psychology. And I done well. I just published a book, The Wisdom of Mental Illness, Finding Strengths in Your Struggle, 3,000 downloads. Then I know there are 3,000 people suffering from mental illness who in one way or another have learned something from me. And what I would like to do now, the rabbi told me that I had 25 minutes, and I will try to obey, is to give you, I'm going to talk about positive psychology tomorrow, optimism, in Spanish and in English, then you can choose tomorrow morning. But I want to give you at least today, very shortly, then you live with something, 5 principles of positive psychology. 5 principles that may give you a better life. And I learned this after 10 years of learning positive psychology. Then you are not going to find this on any book. This comes from reading hundreds of books. The first thing I want to tell you is about the law of attraction. Have you heard about the law of attraction? It's a great law. The law says the positive attracts the positive, and the negative attracts the negative. And we know this scientifically. More positive you feel and try to be, more positivity you attract. More negative you are, more negativity you attract. And you know that, those days that you feel good, and good things begin happening to you. And when you don't understand that good things happen to you, not because you have changed reality, but because you have changed yourself, and because you have changed yourself, reality appears better to you. And the biggest change in life doesn't begin by changing reality, but by changing the inside through positive attitude. That's a law, the law of attraction. The second law I want to share with you is called the law of abundance. And the law of abundance says that energy is unlimited. Your materiality, your body is limited, but the energy of you has no limits. The entire cosmos is energy, we know that. The entire cosmos vibrates. And some people tell me, Rabbi, I don't feel with energy. And I tell them what's happening to you is like a radio that is not tuned to the right channel. The energy is there, but you are not in synchrony with all the energy that is around you. And there are ways to synchronize. One is to be positive, self-exploration, prayer, meditation, but never think that you don't have enough energy. What you happening to you, you are not connected to it. Okay, the law of abundance. We are going to talk about that more in detail. The third rule I want to tell you, which is a bad one, which is the law of negativity. The law of negativity says that the negative is stronger than the positive. Okay? If somebody loses a job, we know it's depressed by an average of 6 months. If somebody gets a promotion, is happy for an average of 1 month. Okay. Then Professor Barbara Fredrickson, who is the #1 person today in positivity, actually she measured this. For each negative emotion a person has, anger, jealousy, each negative emotion, you need 3 positive emotions to equalize, and 4 to 5 to flourish, which means that the price of negativity is tremendously high. You have to make an effort to be positive, because every negativity takes 4 times the effort to bring it to positivity. In other words, we need to go to the gym of positivity. It does not come naturally to us. It's a great price to negativity. Give you one more. Happiness is not removing what hurts us. There are people who live their lives preventing, avoiding, jumping over. We know today from science that happiness is not avoiding, like stopping an indigestion is not eating well. Or like I told a friend, saving is not the same as investing. Saving is not the same as investing. You have to invest in happiness. And there are people, I know people, who live their life with fear, and they're always navigating life as an obstacle course of pain, when they don't understand that what is asked from you is not to avoid pain, but to seek flourishing. It's a different attitude. Then happiness is the pursuit of happiness. Okay? It does not come to us. It's a search. It demands an intention. Then you have to move from avoiding to action. In some way, that has been my story, from a couch, waiting, to going back to the university without knowing how one day would be to the next day, writing papers when I was manic, and not writing papers when I was depressed, taking every opportunity and excelling. 2/3 of people do not know their strengths. 2/3 of people do not know their strengths. There is an epidemic of strengths blindness. And many people are waiting to open a folder on their desk of life. I have the opportunity to be the best they could be. That's what positive psychology is, the psychology of what works. For a century, psychology has cured us from neurosis, anxiety, and depression. Now psychology is attempting to give us the gifts of courage, resilience, happiness, flourishing, and is exploding with research and experts. And that's what I came to Beth Torah to share with you. I'm going to do it tomorrow in more detail. I gave you today some principles for you to think about. If I could get out of where I was, okay, then what did I do? I became the bipolar rabbi. I said, the press want to call me the road church rabbi. I'm going to beat you at your own game. And I rebranded myself. And I own my own narrative. For many years, they told my story. And I hear with pride every time I can to tell my story. Okay? They wouldn't beat me. They shouldn't beat you anywhere you are. Shabbat Shalom.